here, RDA board members, mayor, and Melinda and administration, everyone, thank you for being here. And those that will have speaking to us, thank you for being here. I will begin by reading regarding the electronic meeting, and Melinda's going to put that up there. There we go. Thanks, Melinda. As chair of the redevelopment agency of Murray City, IBRT have determined that due to the continued rise of COVID-19 case counts, holding an in-person meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those in attendance. Under these circumstances, Utah Code 52-4-207, parentheses 4, allows for electronic meetings to be held without an anchor location so long as the public has an opportunity to view the meeting and submit public comments. We are holding today's RDA meeting via video conference, and the meeting is being live streamed at www.murraycitylive.com. If you have a public comment to submit to the RDA, do so by email at rda@murray.utah.gov. Again, that's at rda@murray.utah.gov. All right, thank you, Melinda, for putting that up there. And we'll go ahead and move to approval of our September 15, 2020 meeting minute. Wow, I can't say that. Do we have any questions on those? And if so, go ahead. If not, go ahead and I'll ask for a motion.
Okay, Brett, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September 15th, 2020 for the RDA meeting that took place at that time.
Thank you. Diane?
I will second.
Thank you, Rosalba. Jennifer?
Ms. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. House?
Aye. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, board members. Next are the public comments. We have two that will be read by, is it Melinda or Jay will be reading those? Jay. Okay, I'll let you go ahead and do that, and then we'll go to our in-person one after.
All right, this one was submitted by Mr. Jim Brass today, November 17th. It reads, while I am familiar with Eadlin and admire their projects, I am concerned with the RDA going forward without input from the citizens and the business community. Also, with COVID-19 changing the retail and dining landscape so dramatically, how do you decide the best mix of businesses? How do you draw people to your project without first determining what will bring them in? How do you bring people downtown in the current pandemic environment? I like the developer, but before you commit to a project, do the groundwork to make it a success. Also, in the rush to do something, anything, do not destroy what makes Murray the place we all love. Thank you, Jim Brass. Comment number 2 from Mr. Brent Barnett, submitted today, November 17th, 2020. To the RDA City Council / RDA Board. The current developer's proposal is an interesting project to consider. Nobody has had time to really study it. Here are a few early thoughts. 1, refine what is meant by a city center. The drawing looks very nice. The group seems like a great, talented firm. It is not hard to see, however, that this is not a complete answer for a real bona fide city center. The first cut appears to be more like a self-contained high-rise neighborhood than a true city center where residents from all over the city can gather. 2, address key questions. To improve the plan, perhaps the developer team could use their experience to help us as a city think more about what a true city center might entail, addressing questions such as, what key factors draw people to a downtown? How much commercial space is necessary to attract people from all over the city? What could a city center plaza be designed adjacent to a commercial area that would allow restaurants and street music? What size of a city center plaza would be needed to allow gatherings of 800 to 1,000 people? How have other cities used a central block to create a sense of community in their cities? 3, respect and professionalism. It would be a really good next step and would show a lot of respect and professionalism if the concepts and goals were first presented to the citizens at a time and in a manner where residents have an opportunity to fully understand the issues and have their questions answered. Is this something this developer has the ability to help with? 4, enlist participation of neighborhoods. There should, of course, be a special effort on the part of the planners to first ensure that residents in the adjoining neighborhoods have the opportunity to voice their feelings and ideas about the potential use of the city center space. This would show a lot of respect and professionalism to these residents. Thanks for all you do, Brent Barnett.
Thank you, Jay. And thank you to those that commented. Melinda, is Janice here? I don't see her.
Yeah, she is, and she does want to speak. So we'll have Jay.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Turn that over to Jay again. Thanks, Jay.
And we do also have Kathleen Stanford with us, and she wanted to speak as well. So we'll have Janice go first and then move on to Kathleen. And then we'll, assuming you're wanting to limit the comments to 3 minutes, so I'll start a timer.
That's correct. Thank you, Melinda. Thanks, Jay.
I'm not seeing a Janice on the.
You got to switch to the attendees. So there's the panelists tab and then the attendees tab.
All right, Janice, you're on.
Okay, I don't know if I'm on video or if you're just hearing me. Okay, there you are. I guess it just shows my name. All right, you can all hear me right now? Okay, I should see nods. Now we start the timer, right, Melinda? Thank you. So the prospect of development along 4800 South and State Street is exciting. And with all this excitement, I'm asking you, the RDA board, to be cautious jumping into this grand development prematurely. I'm asking that the board look to engage their community and get their support before entering into an exclusive negotiating agreement with Edlin Company. I am proposing the board make a small and wise investment to implement downtown redevelopment's revitalization roadmap on our downtown. It was about just 1 year ago that the council was able to hear from Ben Levenger of Downtown Redevelopment. Here's what the revitalization roadmap would do for our downtown. It will gather input from all stakeholders, both citizens and business and community and business and property owners through surveys and cottage meetings. It will assess existing structures and their adaptability for better uses in our downtown, identify small and locally owned businesses for reinvigorating the local economy, and create an action plan for revitalization that engages the whole community and involves all of downtown. This is a roadmap that can be completed in a timely manner, like 3 months, with action steps where all can participate for carrying out a renewal of the whole downtown. In addition to just this 4800 South and State block that the agreement's about, there are many parts of Murray's downtown that are worn out. And by taking time to assess all of the downtown and how to return it to vibrancy, we are multiplying the benefit of a development such as this one for our community. You know, Murray's Rich Heritage began as a major smelting hub of the West. It was during the smelting era that ore was brought from the surrounding areas, and with applied heat, base metals were extracted, such as silver, lead, and gold. And these metals were valuable in the building of the Salt Lake Valley and throughout the West. Where would our state be without Murray's contribution? Today, Murray can do a modern smelting of our downtown. We can gather public input and assess the condition of our whole downtown. By applying a comprehensive approach, we can extract and refine our unique downtown gems and promote development that will complement our city's character and enhancing our community for many generations. Whatever development happens is going to be with us for generations to come. So it's very important that we do it with everyone involved and everyone ready to support and move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Okay, Jay, I'll keep it with you.
All right, now we'll have Kathleen, just a minute. You there, Kathleen?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, before you start the clock, maybe you could let people know I've just received a text from someone that said they could not figure out how to make comments in the meeting. Maybe you could let people know that they need to go probably to the Murray City page, find the agenda in order to make comments. Would that be possible?
Yes, people can join the meeting even after it's underway, and then they'll be able to make comments.
Well, even if they're watching a live stream from Murray City Live, I don't think they can add comments there. They have to be on the Zoom link to make comments. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct, yeah. So they would need to go to the meeting agenda and register to attend the webinar, which they can still do, or they could submit an email comment.
Okay. Well, I just think it's important that people know when people get on live stream, they think that maybe they can make comments, and that's what you want is for as many people to feel like they can give comments as possible. Okay, I just have a couple of questions, and I do think that there's been a big concern about not having public input on this project. And if Murray really cares about public input. I also want to ask the question, is the general plan specifically talks about keeping historical elements, and historic preservation is a part of the general plan. And I would like to know how this is part of that. That I am a part of a large group of people that are part of a nonprofit, Murray Historic First Foundation, that has been, people have donated from Murray and given money to our foundation for things, and they need to know if they can, if they're really heard. I have a question about an exclusive developers agreement because 2 years ago, Murray City had to pay $1 million to a developer who did nothing because of an exclusive developers agreement. That is really worrisome to me, and I wonder, can anybody tell me about this exclusive developers agreement? Because paying $1 million to a developer for doing nothing because of an exclusive developers agreement doesn't seem wise. That was $1 million of taxpayer money, basically. And I don't know if maybe if Rosalba and Kat knew about that 2 years ago they had to pay a developer because an agreement was not thought out maybe as well in advance as it could have been. I do think we need to be very careful because I don't think the citizens have still received a good explanation of why there's a huge hole on Vine Street and State Street that has no development on it, just a hole that's been there for 7 months now, over 7 months, and we want to know why. So I would really put from the neighborhoods and the people that matter about this. We have two historic preservation groups in Murray that haven't been consulted about this, and I think that would be a wise thing. It seems like Murray hasn't been listening to, has thrown its minority populations under the bus, like women. I feel like Murray hasn't listened to women or the elderly population. We have many elderly in our
Did we lose Kathleen?
The microphone, I think, muted at the 3-minute mark.
Oh, at 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, what do we do on that? Just move on then, or?
Yeah, I think so. It looks like we do have a couple other attendees.
Okay, we have more. Thank you, Kathleen, by the way, and we appreciate your comments.
So we have Michael Todd and Rachel Morot. I don't know if they were wanting to speak as well.
Jay, have you got them?
Oh, Rachel Morot has raised her hand. So yeah, she would like to
Okay.
speak.
Okay.
All right, Rachel, we'll have you up next.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to address everyone. I'm part of one of the preservation groups in Murray, and we fought really hard to try to save our most important historic building that we've now lost. And we are concerned that Murray is going to just be made into a carbon copy of all of the other generic city centers that we have around Salt Lake. I'm thinking specifically of Sugar House and what happened to that. And there are a number of other smaller, like little micro downtowns that have kind of been taken over by just sort of all I can think of as generic is a good word for it. And I looked at the rendering, and it has nothing to distinguish it. And I don't think it's worthy of Murray as a very unique and individual community. I think that there definitely needs to be more input from the citizens of Murray. There needs to be time for us to be able to do that. I appreciate your scheduling and your deadlines, but I do think that the people that you represent need to be allowed to have a voice in what they want to see in their downtown area. And from what I know of living in Murray and associating with wonderful people here, I don't get the impression that a generic downtown plan is going to represent or be welcomed by the people of Murray, specifically the ones that our foundation has had the pleasure of interacting with. We're not cookie cutter, and we don't want to be made into a cookie cutter community. And I do think that more time and consideration and interaction with the community needs to be done by our representatives, which is yourselves. So I thank you for allowing us to have the time to comment in this meeting.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, and then I was getting nervous that the time was good. If Melinda, can you see the time? Tell them maybe 30 seconds before. You're awesome.
I apologize. I didn't know that was going to automatically turn on.
That just cut off, didn't it? I was thinking I wanted to interrupt Rachel and say, let's make sure you have the time, but she did great. Yeah. So anyway, okay, now.
Second warning.
Okay, you're great. Thanks, Melinda.
And then
Jay, do we have Mike?
Todd?
Or, yeah.
Yes, Mike Todd would like to speak next. I'll bring him in. You're on, Mike.
Good afternoon. I've finally shown up. I didn't know that I was actually connected to this call. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I only want to ask when when will the opportunity for the other stakeholders to be involved? When will the opportunity for the other stakeholders to be included in the discussion process be included? I was only planning to listen to this meeting, but I guess I'll say it this way. I mean, I couldn't be more of a supporter of what the city is trying to do here, but I don't know what the city is trying to do here, so it's difficult to be involved at all, and I just would like to know when we'll be included so that we can support it. That's all I have to say.
All righty. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jay. Are there more, Jay, or is that it?
No, I've asked people who'd like to speak to indicate, and I have not seen any other people ask through the chat or by raising their hands. So I think we're
done
good
there.
to move forward.
Okay, I'll close the public comments, citizen comments, and then I'll turn the time to Melinda. I don't know if you want to address some of those things now or have the mayor or whatever. Or what's your feel on that, Melinda?
Brett, where this wasn't a public hearing, this was just public comment. I don't believe we need to address that.
Okay.
Point.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor.
Oh dear. Okay. I think a lot of those questions may be answered too as we proceed with the meeting.
Yeah, I guess. Let me just chime in there, Melinda. Sorry, but a lot of them will, including the timeline on when the public will be involved. So we're just barely getting into the beginning of this process. So let's hear the presentation. But where this is not a public hearing, I don't think that we need to come back and address each one of those questions in this setting. Not that we won't address them, because unlike has been portrayed, we are listening. So, GL, is that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Correct there. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, GL. Okay, Melinda.
Okay. Then I suppose, should we move on to item number 3 then, the 2021 meeting dates?
Please.
Okay. Let me just going to put the dates up on, on the screen. Okay, so every year the state law requires us to approve a meeting schedule for the upcoming year, and we need to publish that meeting schedule. So we normally do that at the end of the year. So before you have today are the RDA tentative meeting dates for calendar year 2021. And if the RDA boards approve this today, what we'll do is go ahead and get a meeting notification published in a local paper in compliance with state law that these will be the tentative meeting dates. We do anticipate at this point in time that the meetings will be held in the same format, which is the electronic meeting with the webinar, the ability for people to see the meetings live streamed, but with the pandemic still ongoing, we don't have an announcement of a physical meeting location like we've had in the past. So that's one difference with the with this notification that we've had in years past, is that we normally would publish the address. So the public will just need to go to each individual agenda to get the link for the meetings, which will always be on murraycitylive.com. But those are the dates for next year, and they coincide with the city council meeting dates as well. So if there's any questions, I try and answer those. Otherwise, we can, I guess, look for moving to approve the meeting dates.
Thank you, Melinda. Are there any questions regarding those meeting dates?
Okay,
Okay.
Brett, I'll make a motion that we approve the tentative meeting dates.
Yes. Did you just say you motioned it? Thanks. Thought you were asking me a question. Okay, Diane?
I'll second.
Thank you both. Dale, motion, and Diane seconded. Jennifer?
Ms. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez,
Aye.
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. House.
Aye. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, next, item number 4, presentation of retroactive cleanup costs for the Jesse Knight Legacy Center. August 18th, 2020, participation agreement for the property located within the ore sampling mill community reinvestment area at 5510 South 300 West. Melinda. Or Jay, sorry, Jay.
All right, thank you. So what we have here is just an informational item for you all to get these cleanup costs on the record. As you are no doubt aware, with the recently approved development and participation agreement with the Jesse Knight Legacy Center, they have the ability to submit costs associated with the cleanup of the ore smelting site. And they have submitted a batch to us, and we have, as staff, have reviewed them for accuracy, validity, and everything looks to be in order. They cover a variety of costs, including debris removal, landfill fees, soils testing, engineering, general contractor, architect, labor hours, equipment, and engineering work. It also has the 6% for administrative fees that was agreed upon. And this total submitted reimbursable costs to date are $809,013.54. And so we'll be keeping track of the total costs that they submit to us. Those costs will be eligible for reimbursement once the project is done and begins generating property tax. So that's it. I will answer any questions, but pretty simple and easy.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions for Jay on that?
Thank you for keeping us updated on that.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Yeah, I will just add real quickly that we wanted to just have this presented as an FYI also to create a public record so that we can go back in minutes and know that we received the cost, that the costs look to be valid as to what the agreement lays out. And then knowing that there's still a couple more years, even maybe 3 or more years before this project starts generating increment, a lot could change between now and then. And so we wanted to just put this on the public record as well, so that people looking back from the future and trying to figure out and understand what had happened, that this would be laid out for them.
Great. And I think that's a great thing you've done. Thank you, Melinda, for doing that. Okay. There's no more questions for Melinda or Jay on that. We'll go to item number 5 and presentation, discussion, proposal for the RDA owned property at 4800 South and State. And Melinda, I will turn the time over to you to introduce our presenter.
Thank you. So just a brief explanation on what brought us here today. Earlier this year, the RDA opened up a request for proposals, and we received 5 proposals. They were due July 10th. There was an internal committee that reviewed those proposals. It also included Chair Hales and Vice Chair Cox as well on that committee. And through that process, we have brought forward to you today the highest scoring, highest ranking development team to present to you their concepts. So what they will present today is very much the same as what we were presented as the RFP selection committee. So I'll let the Eadlin team introduce themselves, but we're very happy to have them here. It was, I think, a very well thought out and streamlined process for selecting developer to bring forward to the RDA today. And then just a note of this is really the very, very beginning step of what we hope will be a very solid and long-term relationship as we move forward in this to bring some exciting development to downtown Murray at the 48th and State Street property.
Thank you very much, Melinda. Mark Adlin and my business partners, Jill Sherman and Dean Pepe, are with us today. Our construction partner, Eric Calder of Zwick, and our architectural partners, Kat Schultz, Craig Mendenhall, and Matt Bray. We each have a part of this presentation. So first of all, we'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you our vision for this key property in your city. We are very excited to have been selected to partner with you on this important project. And also we have condensed today's presentation a bit for you for purposes of brevity. We're extremely excited to have the opportunity to partner with Murray Redevelopment Agency and with your citizens to contribute to your city's vibrant vision for your downtown. As a company, we love urban mixed use, walkable, and highly sustainable projects. It's simply the reason we exist. And Craig, do you want to pull the slides up?
Should be able to see them. Can you all see my screen?
Terrific, thank you. 25 years ago, I co-founded Girding Edlin with my good friend Bob Girding, who passed in 2009. Together, we built Girding Edlin from a startup to become one of the country's foremost urban mixed-use development firms and the nation's leader in sustainable design, construction, and operation. Over the past 25 years, we expanded into numerous markets, including Los Angeles, Honolulu, San Francisco, Seattle, Boise, Chicago, Boston, Spokane, and the Salt Lake Valley. During that time, we developed over 5 billion of Class A product, including over 7,000 residential units, 77 LEED certified projects, including 23 platinum and 49 gold buildings. And I'm proud to say we recently broke ground on what will be the country's largest living building, which will be net zero energy, water, and sewage. So why change our company's name and focus? Coming out of the last recession in 2009, we became concerned about the ever-increasing costs of living in the coastal cities, along with what we perceived as a deteriorating quality of life. Because of that, over the last several years, we've been transitioning our company to Edlin Company out of respect for the passing of my partner 11 years ago, and to signify a change in our mission. Instead of building high rises across the country in some of our largest cities that serve some of our wealthiest citizens, we have shifted our focus in two important ways. First, geographically, coming back to our roots, choosing to focus exclusively on the Pacific Northwest and Intermountain regions, believing that more people and companies are and will continue to choose to leave the large and expensive coastal cities and relocate to more affordable cities with a higher quality of life, such as Murray. Second, our business plan is to develop product that serves not only our wealthiest population, but also serves a more inclusive and diverse population, including our vital workforce, including folks such as nurses and teachers that are so often overlooked. Over our history, we've completed perhaps 20 public-private partnerships, from K-12 schools to universities to affordable housing to addiction and mental health treatment facilities to multiple performing arts centers. Over that time, we have proven ourselves to be a trusted partner, emphasizing integrity, transparency, communication, and always do what we say we're going to do. A few examples of our public-private partnerships, beginning in the upper left and going clockwise, include 38 Davis, consisting of classroom and office space for the University of Oregon's business and sports product management programs, general office space, and 65 residential units. In this case, the land was owned by Portland's redevelopment agency and was secured via an RFP process that's very similar to yours. On the top right, I'm particularly proud of this project. It is named the Girding Theater in honor of my deceased partner. Today, it is Oregon's premier center for the performing arts. On the bottom right is our LifeWorks Northwest Center for Hope and Recovery, working with inpatient drug and alcohol residential treatment focused on women of color to keep them with their children while they're going through treatment. The project includes a treatment center, interim housing while the mothers are going through treatment, as well as permanent affordable housing for the mothers as they graduate along with their children. This project was capitalized with a very complex capital stack, including tax-exempt bond financing, new market tax credits, tax increment financing, along with a capital campaign that we helped lead. In the lower middle is our living building project, which when completed next year will receive the living building certification, which is the highest sustainability certification that exists today and will be the largest one built to date anywhere. Again, this building would be net zero energy, water, and sewage. And finally, in the lower left is our Housing 106 project, which is a partnership with one of our not-for-profit affordable housing and social service providers, Human Solutions. It includes 75 mixed income housing units, office space for Human Solutions, and ground floor retail space. This project's capital stack included a ground lease, new market tax credits, low-income housing tax credits, tax increment financing, tax-exempt bond financing, and a capital campaign. Needless to say, we know how to do complex capital stacks. And finally, we have previously developed in Ure Valley, including build-to-suit for Utah Power at Lake Park, the Mountain View office complex in Murray, and we consulted extensively with Property Reserve on the housing components of City Creek, where we worked extensively with Mark Gibbons, following other successful projects with Property Reserve in Tempe, Portland, and Chicago. For your project, we have brought together what we believe is an unequal team to serve your city, beginning with our architect, GBD, with whom we have developed over 3,000 housing units together, consisting of 6.4 million square feet, not to mention several million square feet of office and mixed-use product that we've delivered together in multiple cities across the Western U.S. Additionally, we teamed up and were awarded a consulting project with your city, explicitly to study how to make Murray a more vibrant, walkable, and sustainable community. This is almost like coming back full circle. We're also pleased and proud to bring on Zwick Construction, who's located a mere walk from the site. Before Darren Zwick stepped into his current role, he worked for years with one of our partners' construction managers, who will be working with us on this project. And finally, our development partner, DeChase Miskas, is a long-time relationship where Dean Pape worked for our company as a senior project manager, responsible for delivering some of our most complex high-rise projects before starting his own company in Boise, and with whom we have developed numerous projects in the Intermountain region. So once again, thank you for your confidence, and I'd like to turn it over to my partner, Dean.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate the introduction. Let me echo Mark's comments in regards to our excitement and the opportunity to work with the city of Murray and the community as a whole. As Mark mentioned, our relationship started when I got my first job working for Mark and his partner, Bob, building a handful of projects focused on the South Waterfront. As I cut my teeth building 300,000 square feet of medical office facility for OHSU, and one of the first condo projects in the South Waterfront, including 272 condo units, excuse me. In 2007, I had the opportunity to start my own company, DeChase Development Services, in assisting Girding Edlin on a project in Bend, Oregon. I worked on a handful of projects, both through the entire development project and in pre-development with GBD Architects, and had the opportunity to bring on Zwick Construction through our senior project manager, Craig Kirkendall, who built a relationship with Darren Zwick many years ago. Starting the company, our focus was always on construction management and owner's rep, and still is a major part of our company today. Mark Mixis, my business partner, joined the company in 2010 as I brought a background in construction. He brought the background of design to help round out our focus on development as a whole. Growing throughout the Pacific Northwest, we are currently located in Boise, Idaho, and Eugene, Oregon, and have completed projects in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Alaska, and Montana, and are extremely excited to move into Utah. Included in this current slide are some of the projects that we have completed and some that we are currently under construction or in initial development phase. Next slide, please. Like the rest of our team, we enjoy public-private partnerships and the process associated with them. We believe that it is the best approach in working with the community as a whole. We've built relationships over the years through these public-private partnerships with cities like the city of Boise and those urban renewal agencies like Capital City Development Corporation. along with the City of Spokane, the City of Eugene, the City of Bend, Ignite, CDA, the City of Coeur d'Alene. Some of these pictures are examples of public-private partnerships. In the upper right, we are currently working with the City of Caldwell on a project to help bring workforce housing and a hotel that is dearly needed in their downtown. The upper right is a picture of a project that we completed in downtown Boise called the Gibson, that we completed with the Capital City Development Corporation, the City of Boise, Boise Parks Department, and the Downtown Boise Association. In the lower left is a project that is currently underway, which is mixed use, mixed income project that we're working with the City of Boise, Idaho Housing Authority, Capital City Development Corporation, and Ada County Highway District. In the lower right is a project that Mark and I recently completed, a workforce housing project known as Ashen River, which we had won through a similar process that we were talking to you about today, competed against other developers put out by the Capital City Development Corporation. We continue to work with them and the City of Boise and the Parks Department, and are happy to say it's been a successful project for all that who have been involved. And with that, I'd like to introduce Catherine Schultz from GBD Architects.
Thanks, Dean. I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce my partners, Matt. Matt, could you say hi?
Hello.
Thank you. And Craig.
Hello.
They are going to spend the bulk of the rest of this presentation outlining our proposed design concept. So I wanted you to familiarize yourself with them. For the last 50 years, GBD Architects has been making buildings that work hard like we do. We're dedicated to designing buildings that reflect their environment, that are beautiful, and that respond to human needs. We like to say that we create spaces for humans to be more human, which is critical for creating the lively mixed-use environment we're envisioning for this site, and as you're hearing, your community wants for this site. We're passionate about sustainability. The perfect building for us is one that produces more energy than it consumes and consumes more waste than it produces. Our 2-decade partnership with Eaton & Company, a leader in sustainability, made us an early adopter of LEED. Thanks to our partnership, we continue to be one of the nation's leaders in sustainable planning, design, and development, and we're going to ensure that sustainability is a priority for this project. Our experience has taught us the importance of collaborating with the local community, engaging local consultants, and importantly, teaming with local jurisdictions and citizens. Teaming with you to fully understand your goals and working to problem solve with the community on how best to achieve those goals will be critical to our success, your success, and this project's success. Our long history of work with Gertie and Eadlin has focused on creating vibrant urban mixed-use communities, including in Murray City. As Mark mentioned, we helped create a phase master plan for the new urban center, along with design guidelines for the center in Murray. And we couldn't be more excited about the opportunity to play a further role in making the new urban center a reality. I'm going to leave it at that for now. I can take questions later, but I'll pass it to Eric to have him tell you all about Zwick.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. I'm Eric Calder. I'm Vice President of Zwick Construction. Zwick Construction is a third-generation contractor that's based in the Salt Lake Valley. In fact, a year and a half ago, we moved our offices into Murray. Our corporate office is based there. We have 3 different locations in the Western United States, one in St. George and also an office in Southern California in Irvine. We have a deep and a broad resume for multifamily construction. Currently, over the last 5 years, we've had over 4,000 units being built. And currently, we have about 1,500 units under construction right now. Zwick Construction will benefit this process and this project by bringing not only our budgeting expertise and our scheduling abilities, but best practices, value engineering ideas, and because we're based here in the Salt Lake Valley, right here in Murray, having a great relationship with subcontractors that are local and associated here. We're grateful for this opportunity to be working on this project. And as a neighboring business, we're passionate and very interested in Murray's development, and we're eager to bring our experience and to benefit this community. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. All right, I'll jump right into the design here. Early on in the design process, we like to look for, or we look at the site at a 10,000 foot height, and we look for key pieces of information while collecting data and doing due diligence on the site. And this diagram represents a handful of those things that stood out to us. A couple of those items are the solar access from the southern portion of the site, seasonal wind patterns, kind of predominantly from the south, but also from the west, as well as the tremendous views of the Wasatch Mountains at the east of the site. Oops. We also are looking at vehicular transit, and over to the west is the I-15, which runs north-south through the center of the Salt Lake Valley. Just a short distance away to the southwest is Murray Central Station, where the front runner and tracks converge. And bus transit predominantly surrounding the site happening along State Street and immediately across the street at 4800 and State. Walkability is an important issue when we're analyzing the design, and the circles surrounding the site represent a 1/4 mile and 1/2 mile radius around the site. 1/4 mile is about a 5-minute casual walk. And then the red dots represent some of the surrounding developments that will certainly have an influence on the site, as well as ourselves promoting their success. The red dots are buildings such as the Desert Star Playhouse, the Murray Theater, which is a very short distance away, and then Intermountain Health Care Transformation Center, all of those within a quick 1/4 mile radius of the site. We've collected a little bit of context imagery that kind of get at some of those surrounding, again, design influences on the site. We want to engage the Murray Mansion on the southwest corner of the site. We're looking to pull in those, we kind of design from the inside out, but we want to pull the outside into our building. So we want to engage those views of the Wasatch Mountains. As I mentioned, we're very close, within a 1/2 mile of local transit. And we want to be responsive to the immediate context and take visual cues from the City Hall, which is to west of the site. This image shows some of that massing juxtaposition as well as the materiality on the exterior of the building. We want to fold the DAR properties into the design vision. We think that adaptive reuse of the DAR property will bring some grit, texture, history, and some very valuable components into the design of the project. Ultimately, design is about the people, and the largest employer of those people in the region is the Intermountain Health Center. And at the bottom of the image, you see an image of the health center as well as the Intermountain Transformation Center that is south of the site. So diagrams, we use these to sort of set the stage for what we're about to show you. So diagram number 1 is existing conditions. The blue represents the 2.76 acres of the property that we're looking at developing as a part of this proposal, as well as in the center of the site is the 0.42 acre DAR properties. Adjacencies are, as I mentioned, City Hall is to be developed in the future, immediately to the west of the site, as well as the Murray Mansion in the southwest corner of the site, and Murray Chapel, kind of kitty corner from the southwest. Diagram 2 represents really one of two of the big ideas that surround this design and this development proposal, which are to create 2 buildings with individual identities as a part of this development that look like they could happen, over a period of time. We feel like that sort of bolsters sort of the urban and neighborhood vitality as it relates to this design. The north building is 154 units, while the south building in yellow here is 119 units with a combined total of 273 units, or 98.6 units per acre. We'll be anchoring the 4 corners of the site with commercial uses, the largest of which we're exploring a potential grocer at the corner of 4800 South and State Street. And parking, we're looking to kind of establish an above ground parking structure as a part of this design, although we're tucking and hiding it from view and aligning it with an adjacent surface parking lot that will be a part of the City Hall development. So open space, again, this gets at probably the second of the two big ideas, and that's that we're looking at carving out the corner or the southwest corner and creating an open space or plaza. We've chosen to locate it in this corner because it has the most immediate access to public transportation. It's adjacency to the Murray Mansion, again, that we want to fold that vision into the project, and the Murray Chapel, located kitty corner across the street. And we want to expand upon the open space that's in the foreground of the City Hall. And again, sort of have all of these working in unison together. Diagram number 6 is sustainability. So we believe in the synergies between sustainability and placemaking. Our goal is to achieve a LEED for Homes gold rating. And we intend to do so by using local materials, indigenous landscaping, by implementing on-site stormwater management systems, and exploring visually sustainable strategies such as solar power and on-site energy generation. Diagram 7 is about the eclectic scale. Diversity in volume and form promotes neighborhood vitality. And we're looking at stepping down the form as it relates to the Murray Mansion and the creation of the outdoor plaza on the southwest corner. And then ultimately, the last diagram we have before we get into the design is about infill. So, our goal is to be flexible and promote the success of the DAR properties development, whether or not they're ultimately sort of pulled into this project. This slide shows the vision for the design concept. The vision is, design we feel evokes feelings, and it's about being vibrant, and it's having some grit. It's about people, and it's sustainably focused. You can see some of the images show sort of those science on display design characteristics that we feel that we could fold into the design of this project, as well as high quality and timeless materials, such as the design here in Portland, which is in the upper right-hand corner. And this rendering is kind of a culmination of those ideas. We're looking to promote mixed-use development, encourage vibrant pedestrian-oriented design that builds active intersections and supports future developments. We're looking to increase the density in the neighborhood and incorporate sustainable design. Ultimately, we're looking for permanence and quality in the development. You can see in this image the character that could be at 5th and State Street. We're looking at wider sidewalks and, again, a high level of transparency and vibrancy at the ground level. So that brings us to the first plan, on the ground floor plan. This plan shows you how we're eroding the corners, and one of the previous diagrams showed how we're anchoring the corners with commercial and retail. So you can see that in this view, where the largest of which being a grocery at the corner of 48th and State, as well as other smaller retails that you can see in orange here. All of these, they promote vibrant, active streetscapes. All of our frontages are a minimum of 40 feet deep, and again, they're retail, restaurant, and grocery focused. We're looking to tuck and hide the services and parking from view. So where we show entries both on 4800 South and on 5th Avenue, those are access into the parking garage, which is, again, hidden from view, and that also provides access to our loading functions, also hidden from view. Above grade parking is aligned with the neighboring surface lot immediately to the west. And again, that surface lot is ultimately a part of the City Hall development. At the southwest corner, as I mentioned, we're looking at eroding the massing and providing what's currently an 8,500 square foot plaza. And you can see here the relationship between that plaza, residential lobby, retail, and the Murray Mansion. Ultimately, the idea is to kind of create an outdoor room here. We've also shown a small canopy or bike structure to kind of promote bike commuting within the neighborhood. So this shows how we ultimately potentially look at sort of setting up that infill or the DAR properties infill for success, whether it gets tied into this project or happens at a later time. In this diagram, you can see how the parking could easily be stitched into the current design, ultimately to create more efficiency while still allowing the existing building on State Street to remain and ultimately be adaptively reused. The site would also allow for cores and other sort of service elements to happen outside of that existing structure. And again, to sort of increase the flexibility of adaptively reusing that building. So on the mezzanine, again, so the retail volume is approximately 20 feet tall. So we're tucking 2 levels of parking behind it. Services are predominantly located at this level with the parking, and you can see at the parking entries, they're both a high volume, which would allow larger vehicles to come in and service both the housing and the retail from those drive lanes. This diagram shows how, again, our property could be folded into that mezzanine level, ultimately, again, increasing the efficiency of the parking while allowing the existing building to remain on State Street. This is the typical housing floor plan. This is where the identifiable housing footprints emerge from the podium. The north building is 30 to 31 units per floor, while the south building is 23 to 24 units per floor. Above grade parking, or this structure again is in alignment with the parking to the west. And we're fronting the parking at the plaza with some amenity, again, to kind of keep eyes in activity on that plaza. The buildings are organized to create outdoor rooms, and the open spaces on the exterior include private patios, as well as programmed amenity spaces. This diagram shows how the DAR property or an infill of the DAR property could respond to the existing design. So the opportunity, or the yellow box, represents a 9,000 square foot housing footprint. In front of that would be the adaptively reused existing building. If this yellow rectangle were to be 5 stories tall, that would maximize the units per acre on site. And this particular diagram also would allow the contiguous or connection of those outdoor amenities in buildings. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jill.
Thanks, Craig. I'm Jill Sherman with Edlin and Company, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about some of the public benefits that are either generated by the development or part of what we are proposing in the development. And the first thing I'll speak to is the fiscal and jobs impact that we would anticipate a development like this would have in Murray City. We did work with Susie Becker of Zion Public Finance to put together these estimates. We estimate about 317 temporary construction jobs and about 71 permanent jobs, which would come out of the project. An annual impact of property taxes and other taxes to Murray City of about $270,000 a year, and that's sales tax, property taxes, and other taxes that would be generated from the development. Next slide. As Craig mentioned, we've included a variety of types of public space. The most sort of important and prominent would be the public plaza that we've included. That's an 8,500 square foot plaza space. And you'll note on some of the sort of examples that we have, that image to the middle is showing a public plaza that we're developing at a recently completed project. And when that's completed, that'll actually house the local farmers market. And we've worked with local nonprofits, neighborhood and community groups to really try to figure out other ways to program that space and keep it active and available for community use. We're showing some amenity spaces that would be available to the residents, roof terraces, as well as that level 2 outdoor amenity. And then those thick green lines that sort of surround where the retail space is located in the project, those would be outdoor spaces where retail could spill out. If you look at the image in the top left-hand column, that's the type of thing we envision, where even though it's actually private space, it serves a function more like public meeting and gathering space. Next slide. We're proposing in this concept to provide 273 units of housing, a combination of studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedrooms. And we're just giving you an idea of the type of layout we've been looking at and some of the finishes either in the units or in common areas. And I think, because we have developed apartments in a lot of locations, I think we're well positioned to come up with an efficient design that'll live really well and kind of timeless and durable materials in the level of quality that I think the city would be proud of. Finally, parking. Parking, key component and sort of thing we have to tackle when we develop a site like this is how are we going to park it? Because currently either people do not pay for parking or they pay very little for parking. It, of course, becomes challenging to structure parking because that is more expensive than surface parking. But clearly in an urban redevelopment and with a desire to use most of the site for the housing and retail and active uses, parking needs to be structured. In this concept, we're showing it all as above grade rather than going below grade because there's some cost efficiency associated with that. We are proposing to provide more than the minimum required, but less than the maximum that's allowed. And we've currently assumed 1 per unit for residential, 2 per 1,000 for retail, and then the ability to flex or float some of those spaces because some of the residents are going to leave during the day when there might be visitors and retailers. So we could get double duty, if you will, out of some of those spaces. And then we'd like to engage in a discussion with the city as we move the development forward to potentially share parking, whether in the adjacent surface parking lot or in our structure. However, that could make sense and benefit both of us. And now I'm going to turn it over to Matt Bray from GBD to talk in a little bit more detail about some other important elements of the design.
Thanks, Jill. As Craig kind of had laid out in diagrams, as well as the image you saw of the southeast corner on State and 5th, the project's designed as a multimodal project, not only for vehicular address, but for visitors coming to the site via bike, pedestrian, or bus. We've conveniently located bike parking kind of within the garage as well as throughout the site to provide kind of easy access to and from the public right away. The corners, as Craig kind of mentioned, are eroded so that neighborhood commercial activities can spill out onto the sidewalk and energize the streetscape, as well as welcome and receive visitors and patrons coming from neighboring properties. The south facade along 5th Street has been set back to allow and encourage more generous kind of sidewalk activities. And the public plaza is located basically to provide the most direct connection to the Murray Central Station, as well as kind of adjacent to the Murray Mansion and the City Hall, kind of connecting all those activities, both public and kind of civic spaces along the south edge. Craig, you want to go to the next slide? This is a snapshot of the intersection of 4800 and State Street, and demonstrating the strong kind of emphasis and purposeful curation of the streetscape and pedestrian environment kind of envisioned for the project. These purposefully designed corners support the active intersections here and primarily anchor those corners with retail opportunities, enhancing the viability to retailers, as well as these recessed corners and kind of facades and entries create ground level opportunities for outdoor dining, merchandising, and are designed to provide a variety of connections and experiences, as Jill alluded to. The project also presents an inviting human scale appropriate for the neighborhood and downtown, and the permanence and development quality already underway in downtown Murray. And lastly, the project respects the established history and the existing properties in downtown, namely the Dar property, the Murray Mansion, and the Murray Chapel.
Thanks, Matt. So lastly, I'd just like to touch on some of the activated open spaces. And this is the corner on the southwest corner of the site, adjacent to the Murray Mansion, where we're stepping down the massing with this corner jewel box building. We're looking at materials that reflect those currently being studied on the Murray City Hall. We have active uses at the ground level, which would front the public plaza, being retail plus residential lobby. On the second floor, we're further kind of addressing and supporting the plaza with amenity spaces and meeting spaces. And at the corner, we are showing a bike kind of pavilion building that would again sort of further establish and support bike transportation and bike commuting in the area. And lastly, I would just point out, sort of activating the plaza with, both the potential for a bubbling fountain that kids and families could play in, as well as other flexible programming such as kind of berms within the plaza that would again kind of further support the sort of multi-use aspect of the plaza. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jill for questions.
Yeah, thanks. And I just wanted to wrap up our presentation by saying a couple quick things. One is just to thank everybody for the time and opportunity to present sort of our thinking that went into the proposal that we provided, and we're fortunate enough to be the selected proposer. And the other is to say that while these look like designed buildings, we are very, very early in the process, and we anticipate that the design and other aspects of this project will continue to evolve as we know more, as we get more feedback and input. But what we are trying to express is some of the key values and priorities and things that we hope to accomplish with the project, like some of the open spaces, like the design quality, like the sustainability. Those things we expect to be constant, but we also expect that things will evolve and change over time. And with that, I'll turn it over and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Linda, I can't see you, but let's see. If they take that off, then we'll be able to see each other. Sorry. There we go. Thank you. I'd like to commend you for your presentation. I thought your presentation was awesome. Melinda, did you have anything to say before we open that up to the board or mayor?
I'd just like to hear the questions from the board.
Okay. We'll do that. We'll open it up for the board. Thank you.
Hello, Chair.
Yeah, sorry, Nan. Yes.
What I'm concerned about is the parking. If they could show us a little more of the rendering of the parking and how it's situated, the juxtaposition between City Hall and their development. How large are the units, whatever that means? I'm not sure if they're apartments, if they're condos, or what that is. The parking, I guess there's one parking per unit. So how large are the units? Anyway, my concern at this point is parking. Does that make sense? Or
yeah, I think that's a great question, Pam.
Would it be helpful for us to, would you like us to pull up slides again to look at some of the images? Would that be useful?
That would be useful. I would like to see, like I said, where the parking would be. And
I also have questions about parking, and maybe you can answer this with Diane's. how many are going to be assigned to retail? How many are going to be assigned to residents? And will they be separated is also part of my question, or is it all just one clump? But go ahead.
Yeah. So Craig, if you would go to the slide that I spoke to about parking, I'll speak to like the number of spaces and assumptions on how they might be allocated. And then if you're also interested in like the design or how we might screen it and how it integrates with across the street, I'll then hand it over to Craig to talk a little more about that. And actually, Craig, sorry, if you could go back to the housing, I want to go through the unit mix real fast, because I think that's also relevant, Diane, to what you were asking about, so we are proposing apartments, and we are proposing about 25% of the units in that. There's a south kind of bar of housing and a north bar of housing. The south bar is 5% studios, 70% one bedrooms, and 25% two bedrooms. And the housing bar on the north has 3% studios, 84% one beds, and 13% two bedroom units. So, majority of units are one bedroom units, and between the two buildings, maybe there's about 20% that are two bedrooms, and then about 4% that are studios. So that just gives you a sense of the unit mix, and because I didn't really speak to that. So primarily one bedrooms. And then if we could go to parking. So we've assumed one per unit for parking. So that's 273 spaces for parking, and retail at 2 per 1,000. So 2 spaces for every 1,000 square feet of retail, which gets us to about 52 spaces for the retail. And to the question about like, are they separated? Are they together? I think, it's premature to say for sure, but one thing we've thought about and done in the past is there may be some spaces where a resident buys a monthly pass where they have a designated space at one cost. And then there may be other spaces where they buy a right to park in the garage, and the garage is managed so that there will be a space available for them, but it may not be a designated space, which is what would allow us to then be able to use that space as additional space for retail while that resident is not parked in their space. I would say that we recognize that our parking for retail, in particular grocer or restaurant, is lower. The ratio is lower than what those tenants are likely going to want to have, which is why we would like the potential to have a discussion about whether or not there are times that there may be capacity at the city lot that's adjacent, at times where there may not be demand for those spaces, where perhaps then by sharing spaces, we could get some additional capacity.
Would people be charged to park in there, or to just even go in the structure? How would that work?
We will charge residents for either monthly parking space or access to a space. And I do not think we're contemplating at this point that like a visitor or somebody visiting a retail would be charged for parking, because there really isn't a precedent for that.
Okay. Yeah, that's concerning, only having one per unit. Yeah, I'm just not sure how that's going to work. We've had that happen where we have not had enough parking, and so I'm just, that is concerning for me.
My biggest concern is how far parking is from these units, and that it's in the setback. If residents are in the east end of those towers, that's quite a distance for them to get to their parking. And then they'll try to find parking on street or in other areas that is closer to them. So I don't know how that could be addressed. or if that was thought of in the process.
You want me to shift to the plan, Jill?
Sure.
Well, before we leave this page, this precedent imagery on the bottom right sort of represents a couple of different options for how we would go about screening the parking. This is an above grade parking structure. We try to position it with minimal impact on the pedestrian environment, but these are just some options for, we did this parking garage here in Oregon where we got creative with how we screen the parking. This is an option for showing landscaping. So we do have an opportunity in front of the garage for collecting stormwater. So there might be an opportunity to bring landscaping up onto the facade. And here's another example of just kind of sort of a simple screened parking garage that we did. I'll take you to the ground plan. So in this plan, there's 95 stalls on this floor. There's in it was in the between 50 and 60 that would represent parking for retail. So all of the retail parking would happen on the ground level. So here we've shown pedestrian connections. So
excuse me, Craig. Sorry, Craig. I think we all need to mute besides Craig because it's getting feedback.
Okay. So we are showing pedestrian connections from the garage out to State Street, and as well as 4800 South and Fifth Avenue. So if you were to park in the garage, you would have access to cut through the garage. We're also showing on the west-hand side, as Jill had mentioned, the potential for peak parking or overflow parking happening in conjunction with the surface parking lot to the west. We have an opening there where parking could overflow. We didn't speak much to the curbside management, but there's also opportunity at the residential lobby where if you pull into the garage to quickly park adjacent to the lobby for pickups and drop-offs. And we've purposely pulled back the southern portion of the building to allow for both a wider sidewalk along Fifth Avenue for pedestrian activities to happen, but also a curb cut for additional pickup and drop-off to happen outside the leasing. So on the second level, if I were to take you up, so if you were to park on this level, we do have access to both residential cores, both north and south of the garage. So if you were to park, obviously we would prioritize where you park in the garage depending on what building you live in. So people who live in the northern building would park on the northern portion of the garage and have access to the core. So they could go immediately up into those buildings from the parking. And then the same thing as you go, so if you were to go up and you continue up in the garage, we then also connect both north and south building to the residential cores on either side. So they do have a floor by floor adjacency to the vertical circulation within the buildings. This also shows the kind of, again, so this is an above grade garage. You can see in the diagram on the bottom left, how we've tucked that behind sort of active uses that are fronting the garage on the plaza, as well as behind the two residential building masses, and aligned it with the surface parking lot to the west. And so it would be this facade where we would be providing some sort of exterior facade treatment as suggested in the previous precedent image.
All right. Thank you, Craig. Go ahead, Rosalba.
I was just saying thank you. I wish we had these slides that you presented. We didn't get these. We got the actual proposal. So this has a lot more detail than we knew was coming. So I appreciate that. If anybody else has questions, I don't know. Diane?
Yeah, I just have, okay, so all of the units will be rental. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Yes.
I'll ask while no one's asking anything. One of you answer when Diane and Rosalba mentioned, but mainly Diane, about the parking. You've done this before, and give us your feedback on Diane's question or her concern, and also because parking's huge, and we've seen it here in Murray where I think Rosalba or somebody said that they park on the streets in certain areas that they shouldn't, and it really it jams up everything. Give us an idea when Diane gives a little bit of a concern about the parking, one per apartment. Your feelings on what you've done before in the past and what you feel that if that's enough and why that's enough, and just a few things like that. I'm curious for me too.
How about if I take a stab at that? This is Mark. We really view Murray as in kind of a transition. You're not a suburb and you're not the CBD of Salt Lake either. And in our urban projects, in a CBD like Salt Lake, we would probably look at putting between 0.2 and 0.4 stalls per unit in the building. Quite often when we do that, we find not all the stalls are used. And part of that is a function of the cost to rent the stalls, which is a direct function of the cost to build the stalls. A bigger part of it, though, is alternative transportation, where we're seeing more ridership on light rail, more alternative transportation, whether it be bikes or walking or whatever. And here, at one per door, that would probably be the highest ratio we've used in a urban or ex-urban, and we think of this as an ex-urban project that we've ever built, especially in proximity with the proximity that you have to both rail alternatives. And we would envision a lot of these folks are probably going to be working at Intermountain or other businesses in the area. I can assure you, no matter how many stalls we put in, we will not be able to get it exactly right. Also, we look at these thinking about what's going to happen 20 years from now when even fewer cars are used. Can some of those ground floor parking spaces be transitioned into other uses should demand, which we would expect it to do over the ensuing decades, decline? I would say that parking is probably the bane of both of our existences, and that we need to provide it. And it's very expensive to provide. And there will be some folks who will choose to park on streets that are not willing to pay anything for parking. So that will be, I think, a challenge.
Thank you. Kat, do you have something?
Thank you. Yes. I want to thank you, other board members, for expressing your concerns about parking, because that is something on our mind. And it's hard because we are right by tracks and the bus, and I'm a huge proponent of using all these other modes of transportation. But the reality is right now in our area, the train hardly runs on Sundays and it ends really early. So even people who want to use it, there are a lot of challenges towards its broad use right now today. And I appreciate looking out 20 years, but we do have to make sure we don't create a parking nightmare that was created sort of with similar things in mind. I do have a question about two different things. One, what do you estimate the cost of these units to be as far as affordability? I'd love to know a roundabout for loft or the studio, 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, what you project those to be.
So they're market rate units, so they will be similar to other new construction in the area. It's difficult to know, like today, what those rents will be, when we would finish a project like this, which would be in 2.5 or 3 years from now for design and permitting and construction, but they would be in line with other market rate apartments.
Okay, thank you. And Melinda, this may be a question for you, I'm not sure, but I know we're holding space for our historic building there in the middle. I guess the status of that right now, is that definitely holding and it's going to maintain, or is that in negotiation? I feel like I've gotten lost along the way on that.
So we've had some internal discussions on the best approach to developing the project and the property the RDA owns currently. And I think the consensus is that we feel like somehow incorporating the DAR property into the project versus just trying to completely cut it out and construct around it is the better approach. What that means, I don't know. That's something that we would look forward to as we continue on in the process. Similarly, some of the questions that are coming up with the parking and those types of things are levels of detail that we really haven't discussed at this point. This has just been a proposal that, you know, was kind of made not necessarily in a vacuum, but it wasn't a dynamic process. We put out a request for proposals, a 90-page document with attachments, and this is what came back to us. From here on forward is when the really interactive process would be, where we would get into some of these minutiae and the details of incorporating somehow the DAR property. I have spoken with the owners of the DAR property, and they're open to being part of the project. So that's great news. What that means as far as financials and all of those types of things just has yet to be discussed. So the kind of, again, the forethinking from here on out was that we would, hopefully get approval with that exclusive negotiation agreement that basically is just kind of, hey, we're agreeing to be in a kind of a courting relationship over the next 6 months to a year as we explore all of these questions, try and get answers to those questions, and go through a process of doing ordinance compliance reviews and making sure the parking that is proposed meets what is required through our ordinance. And so, the next agenda item would be the exclusive negotiation agreement, but there's a lot of steps at this point that we know we would have to take. And that's really kind of what we're here to ask, is that we just kind of look towards the future and just agree to move forward with Evelyn as our partner, and to really work towards addressing all of the questions, a lot of the really great questions that have come up. We definitely want to make sure that we look at all of these things, the sustainability, the parking, all of the opportunities that would be there for the public to be a part of the open space and those types of things. But we're just in very, very preliminary steps right now. And so a lot of the questions I think that you may have really are questions that we would have as RDA staff, and that Evelyn would still have right now, because we just haven't gotten to that phase of the project yet. So I know that was kind of a long answer, Kat, to your question about just the DAR property, but did you have another question you wanted me to address?
No, that was helpful. And I actually intended to ask earlier in the meeting, and probably should have, as far as what is the process and what other opportunities will we have to say, I have a concern here, what about this, what about that? And I think from someone who's not an architect or a developer, you see plans like this, and to hear this is like entry phase is sort of mind-blowing, because there's so much detail and it's so comprehensive, and hearing about all the sustainability is amazing. That I think we all just want to make sure we don't miss our window to give concerns before the bricks are being laid. But Thank you, that was helpful.
Yeah, and part of the process going forward is, any building that comes through the MCCD, a new building has to go through the MCCD Design Review Committee. It has to go through the Planning Commission. We do staff reviews, and so there's so many more steps that are to come in this. Even like at this point, we haven't even done an appraisal on the property to look at the sales price and those types of things. So there's definitely a lot to come, and the project moving forward is intended to go through the normal public process that we have, where we have the design guidelines that actually are on the Planning Commission. It's on the Planning Commission meeting agenda for Thursday night. That'll be coming to the council in the future for for approval. And that's, also part of the public process. And then any building that goes through in this area goes through that design guideline review. Again, it goes to the Planning Commission. So there's definitely a lot of work to be done, and that's partly when we do get to the exclusive negotiation agreement. The attachment on there was kind of a list of, I think, 26 or 27 different items that we would expect to really accomplish over the course of the relationship as we move forward, to try and further define and get these concepts to a place where we actually have building renderings and those type of things that are needed before we go forward to the Planning Commission and those other groups that review these projects.
Melinda?
Melinda, if I may add, from our perspective, we would look forward to working collaboratively with both the city and staff and citizens, whether it be around the DAR property and what the uses for the DAR property might be if it's incorporated, to parking, to public spaces, and all of those types of things, because it's got to be a transparent and a win-win process for everybody involved. It's your city, and we need to knit ourselves into your city as opposed to imposing ourselves on your city. So we certainly look forward to addressing these and many other questions collaboratively over the coming months.
Hey, Brett, if I may.
Yes.
I just want to make sure while we're talking about the DAR property, and we've talked about this before, I don't want to forget the men and women and families that live in that DAR property while we're talking about negotiations and moving forward. I want to make sure the people that call that home are taken care of one way or another while we're working through this process.
Thank you, Dale. Diane, did you have something to say? I know we're getting close, I know, to the next meeting.
I did. I do. So I guess my concern also is what you're planning to do to make sure that our citizens have input, because public buy-in is so important. I know they're not going to be happy because I've received feedback on this about having all rental units. So, I think that it's really important that we have public and citizen buy-in. And so I'm just wondering, what you're planning on doing. And I understand there is the process, but I think we also need to make sure that we involve the public as much as we can. So Melinda, I guess that question's for you.
Right. So at this point, we don't have an ordinance that would require one way or another as to whether or not units would be rental or owned. So, that's something I think that we could maybe discuss going forward. But again, this really at this point, our plans are to just take this through the regular public process of the site plan reviews and the buildings that'll need to come through the MCC Design Review Committee, the Planning Commission. We would anticipate that in hopefully about 6 months, we would be back before the RDA board with a full-fledged development agreement and participation agreement that would outline all of the details that we would anticipate that that we've negotiated over the period prior to that, and that would then be included in the agreement, so that what we both parties have agreed to bring forward to the table ends up to be what gets developed in the end. And so there's another opportunity as well as we come and circle back with the RDA board, again, 6-9 months from now, where we bring the full project back to the board for their approval and their blessing. But really a lot of the public process has been done previously, where we spent some time last year revising the MCCD ordinance, and we took that through a public process as well with the public hearings. I know that there was some division on thoughts with what we actually ended up approving, even the Planning Commission recommendation on that ordinance. And so, but that's, what we intend to do is look at the ordinance that we have on the book and just take the project through that process as outlined in the ordinance.
So you don't have any real plans to involve the public in this process, other than, the basic fundamental. So I don't hear any public buy-in process, actually, and I guess that concerns me. I think that our citizens deserve to have input on that.
I'd like to speak to that if I could, Mr. Chair. I think Mark mentioned that part of their design process will include public input, which is something that we would embrace and encourage. So yes, we will have opportunities for the public to weigh in on a lot of these as it's designed, as Mark mentioned.
Okay, I think that would be really helpful. So if you would just make sure that happens, that would be great. Thank you.
Let me mention something else too. Mark, I don't know if it was you that answered this question, because I had the same question in the reviews earlier about ownership versus rental, and I'm not sure if now I'm not even sure if it was this presentation, but what I remember is that it was market driven, based on the demographics of those living in these sizes of units. It seems like the market prefers rental rather than purchase, so they can be a little more mobile, I guess is for lack of a better term. Was that something that you had addressed, Mark, or was that somebody else?
Well, Bill, I'm not exactly sure, but our proposal has always been market rate apartments. Our studies tell us that people moving into communities like Murray from other cities, and also those within Murray, are looking for high quality, affordable rental units. We did talk internally about mixing for sale and for rent, but with the condominium laws and how those are set up, it makes it very difficult to do. And so because of that and the demand factors that our studies showed us, we've been focused on market rate for rent product.
Okay, thank you. Rosalba has a few questions. Thanks, Thanks, Diane. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. First off, I would love the slides that you guys used in the presentation, as they were different from our packet. I feel like they were very informative and there was a lot of information. The one area that we didn't touch over was the schedule. And I was really hoping that we would, as the public really wants that information. It was very important to them to kind of know what the process would be. And I know, from what Melinda said, it's kind of going to go through the processes of what it is through the city council and its ordinance. But Mark, can you kind of explain what your process has been in terms as a developer, and what has been successful for you, and just for us to better understand how you go about that process?
Sure, glad to do so. Well, first and foremost, we're going to want to follow the city and the redevelopment agency's lead. We are more than willing to participate in public processes. We really believe in transparency because it's perfect. It allows everybody to understand where we all are as we go through the process. And we're certainly open to input and feedback, much as we've had today. And there'll be much other feedback that'll happen as we go down the road with this, in my experience, our experience. Obviously, not all of that feedback will be able to be absorbed. Some of the feedback will be conflicting. And so I think together it's our job to kind of wade our way through that and come out with hopefully what will be a great project. I like to use what I call the grandkid test, and that I never want one of my grandkids standing on that curb saying, ugh, my grandfather built that. You know, I want them standing on that curb 20, 30 years from now, being proud of that product. And that product will be here for over 100 years. So we've got one chance to get it right. So again, first and foremost, we'll want to follow the city and the redevelopment agency's lead on process. Once we're through that and have gone through all of the entitlement and permitting processes with the city, our expectation would be to move forward right away with construction. We have brought on Zwick again, who has built a construction schedule for this that we'd be happy to share. And then tie on to that in collaboration with the redevelopment agency, what we all think that front end of that process is going to look like, whether it's a 6-month or a 12-month or whatever the case may be. Ideally, we would like to deliver the product in the spring. The leasing season tends to be quite seasonal. So bringing a product on and at this time of year is typically a bad decision from a developer's perspective. So we're happy to share that schedule and, you know, update it as we go through the process as well. And I'm sorry, I think it was Dale mentioned about the existing, should something happen with the DAR property, you know, whether it's by us or somebody else, but thinking about how construction will impact not only those folks, but other neighboring businesses, and being in constant communication with them before we ever break ground, and helping them plan for their continued success.
Perfect. And Melinda, I think this question might be for you. Can you kind of go over what the height restrictions are in MCCD? Again, I know they changed, but.
So they were changed, I think maybe 3 years ago now, but there's a height limitation of, I believe it's 135 feet or 13 stories. So what is proposed here is well under that height limitation.
Thank you I just kind of wanted you to reiterate that. And then lastly, I had questions here and some of them have been answered. I do want to just remind ourselves that currently the MCCD guidelines are one thing and what's being proposed will be another thing. So we need to keep that in mind going forward. And just please be aware of that, council, just moving forward. And there's a lot of things that citizens are worried about and that we've been contacted. I'm sure some of you have. Myself being in MCCD, living in MCCD and being in the district, I have been contacted the most. There's concerns about facade, the way it looks, the way, not necessarily that it needs to be historical, but that it looks like every development that's going up in the Salt Lake County. And Murray is unique in its own way, in that it's important for residents, and including myself, that we just be a little bit more distinguished, however that is. There's definitely a lot of open space that a lot of citizens are concerned about. And I know you kind of went into it a little bit more in detail with your presentation versus what was proposed to us. So I do appreciate that and that consideration, and maybe just thinking about that a little bit differently. And as I think that's about it for now. Parking was one. Parking is always a big concern for us in Murray. So thank you again for your time, and that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Rosalba. Okay. Thank you, everyone. That was a lot to get in there in an hour and a half. Okay, Melinda, Number 6, discussion consideration of approving a resolution of the redevelopment agency of Murray City RDA approving an exclusive negotiation agreement between the RDA and the Edlin Company LLC for the property located at 4800 South State Street. Melinda.
Thanks, Chair Hills. Yes, so I covered a little bit of this briefly in some of my other comments, but we're asking the board today to approve a resolution that would authorize an exclusive negotiation agreement between the Murray City RDA and Edlin Company. And really the agreement before you would just formalize the negotiating partnership that we intend to have over the course of the next 6 months to a year. And essentially it's just saying, look, we agree as the RDA, we're not going to put out another proposal on the project. We're not going to go market the property to other individuals or firms. We just agreed to work with Edlin Company going forward as we try and accomplish all of the many steps that we need to accomplished in order to bring a full participation agreement to the city or to the RDA for approval. So a few things to note about the agreement is that it's really just kind of more of a symbolic, what the term that actually GL has used is that we're agreeing to be each other's date to the dance for the next little while as we try and figure out what the next steps are. There's no financial commitment on behalf of the RDA with the agreement. We're not agreeing to pay Edlin anything, and likewise, they're not agreeing to pay us anything. It's just simply to just give both a good faith effort and a formal relationship to the negotiation process we'll be entering. So the agreement also outlines a number of steps that we anticipate will be completed. Most of those will be completed through the process and as we work to put all the pieces together for a formal participation and development agreement, which will come back to the RDA board. Some of those steps that we've outlined on the document in the attachment won't be completed prior to that. We listed construction and those types of things will, building permits won't be issued before we would be bringing an agreement to you. But by and large, most of those steps will need to be completed as we work together with Edlin in the months to come to figure out exactly what the development will entail, what the site plan will entail. And then in the end, what we'll do is bring forward that agreement and probably a few other agreements in the process. A purchase and sales agreement for the property may end up with other types of agreements, shared parking access perhaps. So again, at this stage, we're in the very, very early development conceptual phase, and this would just formalize the relationship going forward to get more into that minutia and just give both parties a comfort level that we're committed to working through all of the issues that'll come up over the next 6 months to a year.
Thank you, Melinda. Okay, I'll ask for discussion and a motion. Don't have a lot of time, sorry.
Brett, I have a
yes.
Who was on the RFP committee? Was there anyone from the community involved, or who was on that proposal committee?
Melinda? I mean, it was. Go ahead. I'll let Melinda. She can give it more accurate.
So we did not have citizen participants in the committee or anyone from outside the city or the RDA. The committee was composed again of Chair Hales, Vice Chair Cox, the Executive Director of the RDA, Mayor Camp, myself. We had Jared Hall as the Planning Division Manager and the Ordinance expertise, Doug Hill and Jennifer Heaps from the mayor's office were also on the committee. And then we had, from kind of our technical expertise, we had Danny Astle as the Public Works Director, and then Trey Stokes as the city engineer. And then we had some support staff. GL was there with through the process as our legal counsel, and our procurement expert, Brooke Smith, was there to assist us through the process as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the exclusive development agreement.
I'll
Do we have a
second.
Oh, sorry, Kat. Okay, Kat seconded. Jennifer?
Ms. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
Aye.
Ms. Dominguez,
Nay.
Ms. Turner,
Nay.
Mr. House.
Aye. I didn't hear all, I did not hear, sorry. It was hard for me to hear ayes and nays. So how many, Jennifer?
So I have 3 ayes and 2 nays.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. And Melinda, do you have we're kind of running late. So what's your thoughts on the updates?
Well, I think we really have covered all the updates in the previous items, so.
Okay. I'm hitting the wrong buttons. All right, thank you. Okay, I think that's it. So we'll be moving right into our next meeting. Rosalba, is that correct? We've got our own Zoom?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I believe so, right, Jan? Yes.
Could I just say maybe you need a short break and we should start Committee of the Whole at 5:30?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Go through the agenda at that time.
Okay.
So yes,
great.
you have to sign off of this meeting and sign back into Committee of the Whole. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Thank you.